Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to On the Bright Line podcast, Tales from Recovering Food Addicts from the perspective of a physician, a therapist, and an off-the-wall storyteller. We are not affiliated or endorsed by Brightline Eating, and all content presented in this podcast represents our personal opinions and does not represent medical, nutritional, or psychological professional advice. Well, hello, beautiful people, and welcome to today's episode of On the Bright Line podcast. So things are a little different today. If you're watching on YouTube, you probably see my mom is sitting next to me. But also, I just want everyone to know all the background noise. My children are in the room, so they will not be on camera, but you might hear them on the mic. So just FYI, just going to put that warning out there. This is the family episode of On the Bright Line podcast. So today we're actually, my mom came along so that she can tell us her story of BLE. I thought that it might be really interesting. She has a different story than I do. We are unsimilar in the fact that she was not coming from big numbers. I'm not going to tell too much of her story, but we are very interested to hear her talk about it. And so they are new residents of the Pacific Northwest because Bonny is a magnet and brought us all here. Thank you very much, Bonny. We appreciate you. But yeah, so I don't know, Bonny, Robin, do you guys have anything to say or you want to interject or ask questions before we let Mom get started?
Let her roll.
Okay, Mom, we're going to let you roll. So Mom, tell us how you got started, how you heard about BLE and how you got started in BLE.
Okay, well, some background. My husband Dan and I lived outside the country for almost 20 years. And we lived first in South America and then in Europe, in Southern Europe, specifically Southern Spain. And so for 20 years, we ate much differently than people eat in the United States. Very little processed food, mostly fresh, whole grain, just really, really fresh everything. And so we moved back to the States 6 years ago, and every year since then, I was putting on 5 pounds.
Oh.
And so another year went by, and I weighed 5 more pounds. And I've never been what I would consider overweight, but I thought last year, because my year anniversary was February the 1st, I thought last year, when Meagan started, around the time she started the program, it's like, something's got to change. Because if I put on 5 pounds a year, every year, it's just going to,
This isn't sustainable.
It's not sustainable, no. And neither one of us felt good. I had begun to take medication for high cholesterol. And never had to do that before. And just felt very lethargic most of the time, and I just really didn't feel well.
Right.
Not like when we were eating much, much healthier. So when Meagan started the program, I was interested, but not really motivated to do anything about it at that point. But as I watched how she made progress, and it's like, well, this looks doable. I'm a sugarholic, and so the thought of giving up sugar was really, really tough.
But wait, so we're going to background this.
Okay.
You have given up sugar before in your
I
life.
have. I've done sugar fasts for as much as a year before.
Oh, wow.
And it was difficult, but because I think I still had the flour component in there, I could still eat the potato chips, the tortilla chips, the potatoes, all
the NMF,
the other processed food,
the other processed food, or even if it was the potatoes, rice, those kinds of things. I think I could be satisfied with not eating sugar, but then I went for a year completely off of sugar. And that was many years ago, mostly due to the fact that when I went to the doctor, I found out I was hypoglycemic. Is that right, Bonny?
Maybe. You were getting high and then low.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. The the big,
Sort of a pre-diabetes kind of mode.
And my dad had diabetes. And so that scared me into, the doctor told me to eat, frequently and, cut out as much sugar as I possibly could. So for me, food's kind of an all or nothing thing. I can either eat it or I have to just stay completely away from it. I'm very much a black and white person, not a middle gray person.
Right.
So, where was I? Help me get back on track here. Sugar. There we go. So honestly, when I started this last February, cutting out the sugar was not the hard part. Cutting out the flour and the sugar together was the most difficult part for me because I like breads. I love to bake. And so, you can bake without putting sugar in things. You can bake biscuits.
Right.
You can bake bread, all those kinds of things. All kinds of things. So, but Meagan's motivation to do this and just...
I just walked back in the room for those that are listening.
to do this and just the success that I saw her having, Dan and I talked about it, and it's like, well, let's try this, and see what happens. So we started last February the 1st, and honestly, we did really, really well cutting out. It's like, I think we mostly held each other accountable. It was... I'm not sure, I think you've talked about this before. Your husband's not the best accountability partner necessarily, but we were pretty good at holding each other accountable. And we did really, really well. We both lost 30 pounds, which we were ecstatic about. And again, I didn't feel like I was overweight, but I felt like I needed to get back on track and eating healthier and the foods that I knew that were good for us and that we needed to eat. And so we started that, and we've both done really well with it. I think that I tend to be kind of the lead on it, as far as if
he just says, "You make it, I'll eat it."
Yes, or if I decide to cheat, he will cheat too. Otherwise, he wouldn't do it.
I have the same
Love
experience.
it. Love it.
Which is
Tell me what to eat and I'll eat it.
Which is frustrating for me because it's like, no, you're supposed to be holding me accountable. And it's like... And
taking some of the mental
and
load.
then he lets me eat something and he eats it too.
Yeah.
Anyway, so...
Maybe even hoping you will.
Maybe so. I never thought about it that way. Maybe so.
Okay, so let's also talk about like susceptibility score, because I know that like Mom, you and I have talked about that. Like, what is your susceptibility score?
It's 8.
Okay.
Yes. And I even took it again this past week because I thought maybe it might have changed. Nope, it's a solid 8. I'm still right there.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So what's Dad?
Probably like a 4 or a 5.
Yeah.
Right. There you go.
And that's why. And I think even Clayton, my husband, is lower on the susceptibility scale, and he can actually have a cheat, and it does not derail his program. And for me, it would. And that is the reality of some
the
people.
same way. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when, again, they're hoping that you might
cheat.
Yeah.
Right. Won't you carry the mental load for my program?
We have the same with exercise. Well, if you want to go to the gym, I'll go.
Oh, well, Dan's not like
But
that.
if you don't want to go, we don't need to go.
He doesn't. Exercise is not important at all to him. So that's
Ouch,
That's
Dan.
Gotcha.
Dan's getting a long distance slam here.
Right.
My dad looks great for 70.
Yes, he does.
71?
Yeah.
How old is he? I was like, that's
He's
really bad.
71, almost 72.
He is pretty active, though.
No, they're both.
he
Both
is
my
active.
parents are amazingly active. Let's just put that out there. Like they hike, they they work out, they work in the. My mom works out. Like they're both amazingly active.
Yeah.
So.
Dan was an athlete in high school, and his mentality is, I'm done with that part of my life.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, God.
It was a long time ago, but he's kind of done with that part of his
Right.
life.
No, thank you.
He was a 4-sport athlete in high school, so it's like, I've done that, I've done it, I'm done. Yeah. So I think our struggle, Dan and I's struggle now, but probably more my struggle, is the maintenance part.
Yeah.
We hit maintenance.
Uh-huh.
I can't even remember a date, but I would say it was probably 6 to 7 to 8 months in. I don't remember the date right now.
Yeah.
But we both hit our goals. And since then, it's been, it's like I don't have any motivation anymore.
Right. Where's the dopamine?
The motivation went away. we have both stayed within a range, and we've both been good about doing that. But I find myself cheating on foods that I know are not compliant foods because it's like the motivation is gone. And I don't know what to do to get the motivation back. It's like, how do I? Yeah.
Is it the motivation, or is it the, like, I think you were naming that when the numbers stop dropping, there's the you lose that dopamine hit from
The
that.
good times aren't flowing anymore.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
And then the food again provides the dopamine, which is maybe
Right.
why you're still feeling, when you tested, that you're still at an 8, because the cheat every now and then, at least for me, just leaves me sitting in food thoughts all the time.
Yes.
So for me now,
Yes.
I have transferred the motivation from needing to be a certain weight to my motivation is I do not want to be riddled with food thoughts, because I just think about it all the time.
Because I was weighing myself very, very religiously every day, up until we hit maintenance, and now I'm weighing about once a week because I figure, once a week is good enough.
Well, and that lets you have a little bit of more room to
It does.
wiggle.
It does.
Yeah, I was just
And
saying
I
does.
did the same thing, and I
Right.
started wiggling, and I wiggled up about 10 pounds.
Right.
And so, I'm back to weighing every day, and I know it's gonna be kind of stagnant, but it's like, it's just that accountability, like, anytime I'm thinking about eating something, it's that whole, what is it, do what you want. I think this came from Susan, and I've heard it
Yeah.
other places, do what you want, but then pay for it.
Yeah.
Take what you want,
Right.
and then pay for it. And the
Yeah.
pay for it is, I am
Yeah.
gonna see that,
Right.
on the scale, and I don't know, it's that accountability part.
Right. And I know what to do, and I find myself going back to the what I would, I don't know what you call it, but the bright line base of not my food, not my food.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago when we were in Costco, I walked through Costco going, not my food, not my food.
Right.
Because
Right.
I wanted.
This is the first time I'm hearing this. I had no idea.
I wanted
Love it.
so badly to buy some things that I knew were not what I should be eating.
Right.
And I had the recognition that,
Yeah,
you
good
know.
for you.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's
so,
great.
So I feel like I'm not like completely off the rails or anything, but that it's difficult. It's really, really challenging right now. Plus we've had a lot of stress in our life.
Yeah.
We moved halfway across the country
Yeah.
in January in snowstorms. And we moved not knowing anybody, but just the circle of people that are sitting
Right.
around the table
Right.
here.
This is your little village.
This is our village, and so we're meeting people, and that's all good. But we have moved around a lot in our life, and the challenge for making new friends is always like, oh my gosh, I have to do this again.
Who am I going to find
Who am I
here?
gonna find?
How will I find them? Where are they?
So let's also, I just want to caveat all this, because you are what we call a bright booker in the community, which means you've read the book. You obviously are adjacent because you are, my mom, but you're not part of the membership.
No.
Right. So
Yeah.
I think let's talk about community, because I know you and I have talked about this, about the fact that you have not really immersed within any of the BLE community other than engagement with me. So, okay, talk.
Well, and I think the lack of accountability also has
Outside of dad.
and
which
which isn't really.
But again,
But I don't call you when I'm
No,
having,
you don't.
when I'm thinking about
No,
because
I've got enough stuff on my plate.
you do, and I
Right.
recognize that, but I don't have someone or some persons to be accountable other
Right.
than to Dan, and he's willing to let me cheat,
Right.
because well,
Right.
it's like that's not something that you want. It's not something we want to fight over, that we want to be in conflict.
But I mean,
over.
Bonnie, you can talk about
there's
this, because it's not. You don't want the person that
Yep.
you are intimate with to be
Regulating your regulating
Yeah,
your
because
program.
it is hard enough to do it for yourself, and ultimately it just has to come from yourself. So accountability isn't really about the other person helping you do the thing. It's really just about you verbalizing out loud to yourself, in
Right.
front of someone else, like, this is what I'm going to do. And then you still have to be accountable. And I think like I said, I can, the exercise thing, I mean, for us and for food for years before we were on this program, it's like, do you want some,
Right.
insert sugar
Right.
food here?
Right.
Yeah, let's do it, and it just becomes that, and like you said, if the other person says, hey, let's not,
Right.
didn't we decide that we were going to try to eat better? What erupts if you're in your
Yeah.
addiction, if you're in the food,
Yes.
you have now made me mad.
That's
and
right.
now we're gonna have an argument because you know
Right.
what? You can't tell me what to do.
Right.
I know what I'm doing with my food and I've decided I want to have this and now you're ruining it. And you know,
Right.
it's just gonna create conflict. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I really do not. I mean, we do it together. We're married and we do our plan together. But we kind of now have an unspoken rule or even a spoken rule. Like, if you are feeling like eating off plan, I'm not going to go, oh, really?
Yeah.
Or judge it or make a
Right.
comment or say,
Yes.
hey, do you want to do that? I might say, do you want to talk about it? And if he says no, we don't talk about it.
Right.
And just like, do not criticize if I'm having a bad day. And
Right.
I need to go to external people for my accountability.
Yes.
And even like Meagan and Robin, they are not part of my food accountability. I have somebody that somebody else that I meet with once a week, and we just kind of check in
Yeah.
and go through food accountability. And
Right.
it cannot be in your intimate circle, I think, in a way,
Right.
because
Yeah.
we enable each other. Also, we love each other, and so there's that. I want to make you feel better. If you just need to cheat, I want to make you feel
Right.
better about it because I love
Right.
you and I don't want you to feel. I don't know. There's a lot of layers in there, so yeah, I don't
Right.
think it can be your intimate partner or your intimate connections. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I haven't done is sought another person
Yeah.
out, which I feel like is something that I need to do. I told Meagan after we moved here, that's what I was going to do. And we've been here for a month.
She did say that.
And I haven't made a step towards
Yeah.
doing that.
So what keeps you from doing that?
Fear.
Right?
Yeah.
Fear that someone will hold you.
Yeah, fear that I won't be able to do. I'm a control freak.
I come by it honestly, people.
Shocker. And I don't want somebody else telling me what to do, which is okay to have Dan as my accountability partner because he won't.
But
won't
I
tell me
think
what to
there's a
do.
difference between someone telling you what to do and someone functioning as a coach saying,
Right.
help me understand why you want to make that choice.
Right, right.
Let's talk about why you're making that
Right,
choice.
yeah.
Would you like support in making a different choice, or is that what you want to do right now? Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And if it helps, I'll tell you, like, my accountability calls are really brief. And we both kind of check in and say, how's the week going?
Yeah.
What are you struggling with this week? How are you handling that? Do you want any advice or do you not? Frequently we
Right.
don't. It's just like, it's just like, well, here's the
Right.
struggle I had. I was traveling. I didn't go super great, but here's a strategy I'm going to implement for next time.
Right.
And I'm basically just saying that out loud to you that my plan is to, recommit to writing down my food every night because I got sloppy with that or whatever. And that's kind of the end of the conversation. It's not, nobody is telling anybody what to do.
Right.
It's more just like,
Well, it's reflection. I mean,
Yes.
I think that that's really the reality of what, accountability and, we call them buddy relationships are
Yeah.
within the community. And I mean, there's documentation in the community about how to have those relationships.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think that's important, that you're just there to reflect back to the other person, like what you're hearing.
yeah, and you're
it's
specifically not supposed to give advice.
You're not
Right.
supposed to give advice, and definitely not unsolicited advice.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
if someone's asking for advice,
Yeah.
obviously. But I think like within all my relationships, like that's something that I really, that I also have to work on in myself, is not just giving advice that's not asked for, but just reflecting back to them
Right.
what I'm hearing and
Right.
helping them see things in a clear way.
So Meagan, you
Yeah.
might want to talk about where can you get a buddy if you're a book BLE.
Yeah, so being a bright booker, I mean, obviously it's a little more challenging because the Facebook community, which is a closed community to those that are part of the membership, for people who don't know that, it is hard to just go out there. Now, I will say this: there are open Facebook groups that you can find. One of those being like if you have something in your area, like ours is Northwest Brightest. I know there's OC Brightest. Like there's Atlanta Brightest. I don't know. Like they're all the ones like all around the country that if you can find those groups, they're normally, you have to like ask to join, but they're not membership dependent. So that's the other thing, is like if you can find people within your community, not only can you find a connection, like maybe a virtual connection, but you could find an in-person connection as well. So the other thing is there is a whole slew of unofficial BLE support. Some of them are 12 steps, some of them are just open. You know, there's a noon, we call it the noon Zoom because it's Pacific time at noon every day. That's literally every day at noon, Pacific Standard Time. There is a Zoom meeting that is an hour-long support meeting for people BLE, and it has nothing to do with the membership. It's completely open. And I go very regularly when I'm available to go at noon. So, you know, there are options for people to find community outside of the membership. It is more challenging. So like being someone who is a presence on social media, I have people reach out to me regularly. But that's the other thing is like, I mean, specifically like on Instagram, a lot of people have BLE in their usernames. So you know that they're part of the community. And I know that there are people that connect up that way. So you have to be more intentional for sure if you're looking for it outside of the membership. But I don't think it's impossible. And there are a lot of people, I mean, and Tony talked about this, like his brother has never been part of the membership, but has been very successful and is even like hooked up with all of the other men in the community because, you know, as a Bright Booker, as somebody who didn't necessarily join the membership. So I'm not discounting the membership. I think the membership is amazing. There's tons of resources and community there. But if that's not possible for you or you don't want to do that, there are other ways to find community. So.
And I will just say that we're not doing the membership because of financial reasons. That's the only reason.
And for
we're
lots
not
of people,
doing
that's
it.
the reason.
Right.
It's expensive.
Yeah, we're on a retirement budget, and
Yeah.
it's not in our retirement budget right
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
So yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I think that the only other thing I was thinking is that there was something that popped up, and I don't even think I've ever talked to you about this. So this will be a really interesting conversation to have about keeping your eyes on your own plate, right? So this is something that like we talk about in the community about, you know, you're not in charge of anybody else's food.
Yeah.
Like let's say you're you know married to somebody who's on plan, or you know you're friends with somebody who's on plan, and you see them going off plan or whatever, like how do you know, like what do you do in that? So I was thinking about when we were in Chicago. Do you remember when we were in Chicago? So that was I was not long in the program at that point, and you guys had just started.
Just started. We were there in April. We were there in April a year ago, and we had just started in February, and you started what?
In November, yeah. So I had been, you know, 4 or 5, whatever the math, not my thing, math. Anyway, so I had, you know, this was my first experience being with you guys after having started the program, and I'm sorry if you can hear my children in the background. Malcolm is he's a little noise machine, but we love him. So anyway, enjoy everybody, enjoy my children. So I just remember being there, and you know, we were visiting family in Chicago. We were staying in Airbnb. Like we were making our food, but we did do some out to eat choices. And I just remember you being stressed out about having the Not My Food around because we had people that were staying with us that were not doing, you know, BLE. And I remember feeling very stressed out myself because of your stressed outness about it. Right. And it was just like, it was my first time, like, and I'm around Not My Food all the time. I mean, all the time. Like, it's in my house, it's everywhere. Like, it doesn't bother me to be around Not My Food, but I could feel your stress about it. And so I just think it was a really interesting feeling of like, oh, now there's somebody else in my sphere that I'm watching struggle through this, right?
Yeah.
And like, and then it was like, okay, so like, again, keep my eyes on my own plate. No matter what mom and dad do, I mean, you know, and I'm gonna tell my dad right now, he drinks a glass of wine every night. Good on him, he's 71, he can do whatever the heck he wants. But you know, like reality is,
we're gonna have to get Dan out here.
He's
He's really been on the hot seat.
No,
today.
I know. He's gonna come out and defend himself, and then everybody's gonna fall in love with him, and they're gonna be like, leave your dad alone, Meagan. No, I love my dad. He's amazing. But I will just say that, like, I mean, like, this is another example of, like, keep my eyes on my own plate. Like, it's his program, it's his plan. He can do whatever the heck he wants to do. And so it doesn't really matter whether I consider that being, like, bright or not, right? And it's like, how do you, like, I think this is a discussion, and when you're talking about, like, your family members doing this, your friends doing this, like, how do you just continue to, like, say, I have to do me the way I'm going to do me and have peace about that. And then whatever anybody else chooses to do and call themselves whatever they want to call themselves is fine, right? So
what's that manager part getting so loud about? Needing to manage somebody else's program.
I'm trying really hard not to do that.
Right.
Another challenge I find is just being around the food, because when we go grocery shopping, we don't typically buy non-compliant food, not my food.
Right.
But when, like, we're over at Meagan's house, they have a lot.
Oh, it's
of
their
kid snacks in their
Yep,
house.
yep.
And it's very tempting there. You know, so it depends. And like the Chicago trip, I don't think I realized how, I don't even know the word for it, tempting it was to be around all the snacky
Right.
potato chip, sugary.
We talk about
Crunchy-
food. We
crunchy
talk about food all the
thingies,
time
yeah.
on this show. If people don't, if it's triggering to them, they shouldn't listen
Oh,
to this
sorry.
show. No, I'm saying, go for it. Like we talk about food.
But it was extremely difficult, and I didn't realize until that 2 months in, you know, because we had cleaned our house out. You talked
Right.
about that,
Yeah.
Right.
you know, clean your house out of everything, and we weren't buying it, and it wasn't in the house, and all of a sudden now I'm surrounded by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was difficult. I mean, we stayed bright during that time, but it was like, there was all kinds
The
of
grandparent
thoughts.
dilemma.
It's the
food thoughts.
Yeah.
Constant food thoughts.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, you know, I don't know, Bonnie, Robin, do you guys have anything more to add to the conversation? I feel like there's a terrorist behind me right now.
I
Sorry.
think the only person he's bothering is you.
Me, probably so.
right.
That's- Thanks, Mom.
No,
I know.
I'm
This
just
is
tuning him
I know,
out,
good.
so.
I'm glad. I hope everyone else is
Yeah.
too.
I
Thanks,
think
guys.
they are.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything else to say? Okay.
Nope.
So I think, you know, I just really wanted my mom to tell her story because I think that she has a much different story than I do, and that she wasn't coming from large numbers. It wasn't necessarily a super large health scare, but yet, you know, she realized that this is you know, a healthier lifestyle to live in. And so,
Yeah.
and it is, I will say, like, we talked about challenges, but the reality is like, I go to their house every night for Sunday dinner, and I know that, like, I don't have to worry about what's going to be on the table. And I get that there's a lot of people that don't have that experience with their families, you know, and I am very lucky that I have that experience with my family, that I know that they are not only supportive of my program, but, like, you know, they're doing it too. So it's, you know, there are challenges, but it's not all bad. And so I think the maintenance stance this is going to be topic after topic, guys. We're going to continue talking about this, because I think that now that, you know, we're all moving in this direction, it's really important. And I think the longevity of this program and the sustainability of this program is really about maintenance, like not just getting there, but like, how do you stay there? How do you maintain?
Stay motivated? How do you stay connected? How do you continue and
To
not
prioritize
backslide? Because
that.
every other plan I've ever done, I've always regained the weight. So that's really what makes this plan different.
Yeah. And there are a lot of people in our community that have done it and maintain and sustain. And they are what I feel like bright shining lights in our community. And I really appreciate anybody who's visible and puts that out there for others to see, because I think that is the message that we need to, you know, continue to convey and talk about, and just like talk about how, you know, solutions for how to stay motivated, how to, you know, how to, you know, adopt the identity of like, this is who I am, this is how I eat, that sort of thing. So. Well, I think that is our episode for today. We appreciate everyone listening. And as always, if you have ideas, if you have topics you'd like to hear us talk about, if you have guest ideas, we would love to hear those. Feel free to email us at onthebrightlinepodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on any of our socials. I hope everyone has a beautiful, bright day.